Not real. Uh-huh. Okay. Okay. Fuck it. Hey, what's up, everyone, and welcome to another movie review. And this time I'm taking a look at the brand new Hellraiser film. This one's called Hellraiser Judgment. Who gives a shit about the subtitle? It doesn't matter anymore. Who cares? Just call it Hellraiser 10, Hellraiser 45, Hellraiser 2018. Who gives a shit? Why does it matter? Who cares? Really, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Just call it Hellraiser. Call everyone Hellraiser. It doesn't matter. Hellraiser. You want to see Hellraiser? Hellraiser. Here's a new Hellraiser. You want to see Pinhead? Hellraiser. You want to see someone get cut up with a bunch of little hooks and stuff and they explode? Hellraiser. You want to see Hellraiser? Hellraiser. Hellraiser. Here's a new Hellraiser. You want Hellraiser? Hellraiser. Hellraiser. You know what? I'm not even a big fan of this franchise. I'm really not. Especially since most of the movies, and I would say a good 80% of the movies that have come out, are horrible. The first one is excellent. I love that movie. It has some of the best body horror and just practical effects I've ever seen. I love it. I could watch that movie any day. I don't care. The sequel is more of a kind of like a horror adventure film in a way, and I actually enjoy that one quite a bit, despite its flaws. And I bet if I watched the third movie again, I'd probably like it a little bit more. But when I first watched it, I remember not really caring for it. But I don't really remember much about it. And then all the other sequels, like I barely remember anything about any of them. The only thing I remember about some of them, like Hell World, which is the one that came out right before Revelations, was the dumbest one probably when it comes to the premise, because it was all about like a bunch of teenagers, one of them actually being Henry Cavill before he was famous. They go to this like game or something called Hell World. They go to a party and they play this game called Hell World, which Lance Henriksen is hosting, and one by one they're all killed off by Pinhead. And I mean literally, Pinhead comes around with a machete and starts hacking them apart and shit and killing them and torturing them. And I'm like, all right, Pinhead does torture people, but he does not go around and just hack people's heads off with fucking machetes. I don't know what's going on here. And then you find out at the end, it's kind of like Friday the 13th Part 5, where you find out, oh, it's not actually Pinhead. But that's all I'll say. It's a bad movie. But that one I would rather watch than Revelations, which was the one right before this one. That one, I did a review for it back when it first came out. That one was an insult to Hellraiser fans. Hell World at least did something new. Revelations was literally the same shit, except much, much, much cheaper. Like, they had practical effects, but the only reason why I think they had practical effects is because it was so, they had such a limited budget that they actually had to literally go to the store and just use whatever they could find. Like, they couldn't even afford, like, plug-in effects, I bet. It was such a cheap film. It was all filmed in one house. It had horrible actors. Horrible, atrocious actors. And it dared to try to be like, whoa, this is going to be the most inventive or the best one yet before it came out. I remember they were talking about like this is going to be the most sadistic one. And they even like promoted it like, this one, a second Pinhead is introduced. Whoa, a second one? Fuck you. Like I just remember that. I was really angry. It was I know it was straight to DVD. I don't give a shit. It was cynically made and it pissed me off, and it was might as well have been a spit in the face to fans. So that's, I think, right there is when I stopped being a fan of this franchise. Even if some of the other ones are horrible, at least they're like forgettable horrible. That one I still remember. It's been 7 years and it's a shitty 70-something minute movie just to keep the rights to a franchise, and I still remember it because it still pisses me off. So now we get to this movie, the 10th movie in the Hellraiser franchise, a franchise that has gone on way too fucking long and needs to stop. It really does. At least someone new make it. Not Dimension. Dimension had their go. It's done. Stop making them, Dimension. I'm tired of you. Give it to someone else. But if you're not going to do that, just don't make them anymore. Just lose the rights and let them like float in the ether where no one wants it. Okay? Because no one wants these movies anymore. And if you do, I don't know. At this point, after all these terrible ones, I don't get it. But now we have this one, And it's Hellraiser Judgment. The subtitle doesn't even matter anymore. Might as well just call it Hellraiser. Hellraiser. It's Hellraiser. Hellraiser 2, Hellraiser 3, Hellraiser 4, Hellraiser 2018. Who gives a shit? Who cares what the title is? The title has nothing to do with anything. Okay? The subtitle means nothing. Just like in all those other ones, probably means nothing. Who gives a shit? Just call them Hellraiser 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Call this Hellraiser X. That would have been better, actually. But I'm going to tell you right here. Hellraiser Judgment is fucking terrible. Big surprise. Are you expecting anything more than terrible? It is terrible, but it is so bad, I fucking loved it. I loved this film, at least half of it. Now, I know that sounds confusing. I said I love this film, at least half of it. Half of this movie, and by the way, the movie's only like 75 minutes long, half of this movie is fucking great, and it's great in a terrible, terrible way. The first 12 minutes of this movie is nonsensical, goddamn ridiculous bullshit that the director, writer, and star, because he's also in the movie, he plays the auditor, the guy with all the scars on his face. I mean, he went nuts. Just in the beginning of the film, he just went from 0 to 100 in the matter of a couple minutes. This movie starts off extremely strong. It starts off fucking nuts. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts. Just like in Batman. It is insane how quickly this movie becomes complete schlock. All right, I don't even want to tell you exactly what happens in the beginning of this. I'll just vaguely describe it, okay? Okay, first 12 minutes. These are a couple of things that happen, okay? A guy gets kidnapped by Scarface guy, the auditor. He asks him a bunch of questions. He answers them, okay? He writes it down on a piece of paper. He actually types it down, okay? He's a Cenobite, I'm assuming, so he's typing the stuff down, okay? He takes the papers. He gives it to some fat dude who, I'm serious, the performance this fat dude gives is this kind of performance. He's always giggling and stuff. And he puts the papers on a plate and starts eating it. He starts eating the papers. And then he starts throwing up into this sink, it looks like. He starts throwing up this ooky shit, this gross stuff. And then on the other side of the wall, these women who are all messed up looking, they have like skin removed from their bodies and stuff. So you see like muscle and stuff. It's a good makeup effect. I'll give it that. But, and the auditor actually looks pretty cool too. I'll give him this, the makeup is okay. They are on the other side of the wall and a bunch of gook comes out of these pipes, which I'm assuming is the stuff that the fat dude was vomiting up. And they put their hands in it and they like mush it around a little bit. And then they look at the auditor and they go, guilty. That's a scene in the movie. And I get it. Hellraiser is weird. A lot of the Hellraiser movies are weird. But the first two movies, they waited to be weird. Like, they gradually got to the weird part. Like in the first Hellraiser, it started off with some gore, I get that, but like it gradually got weirder and weirder, okay? And the Hellraiser 1 wasn't too weird. It was violent as hell and there was weird things in it, but you interpreted it as like, oh, this is what hell looks like, okay? This is what people in hell look like. The Chatterer guy, this freaking guy, look at this guy. I have a figure of him. This guy, that's just what some guys look like in hell. And I don't know what the X-Men suits are, but whatever. I'm talking about the X-Men movies, not the original suits, because that would look weird if they were dressing up in all yellow spandex. But that would be hilarious though. But they got all this gimp suit shit on. They make sure they show their decaying nipples. Make sure it shows the tummy. It's grotesque, and you're just like, okay, that just is what hell looks like. Here, when you're watching this guy eat paper and fucking throw up, and I didn't even explain some of the weirder shit in the first 12 minutes. It's brilliant. It is so bad, I couldn't stop laughing. I'm going to tell you right here, I actually did a full reaction to this movie on BitChute.com, and usually I don't like to promote a lot of my shit. Well, that's not true, I do. But I'm not like most YouTubers where I'm just like, hey, click that like button and hit that subscribe and make sure you support me on Patreon and shit like that. But please at least watch the first 12 minutes of that reaction, because I could just tell from like at the end of that 12 minutes that my face probably had a mixture of different emotions. Like it was like a cocktail of confusion, me being frightened, more confusion, way more confusion, me being a little disturbed, and me laughing my ass off, and maybe a little bit of pleasure. That's how I'm gonna say. It's weird. It's really weird. The first 12 minutes feels like it could have been its own little short film, and it could have been called Hellraiser Chronicles Part 1 or some shit, and it would have been like, oh, I don't know what the fuck, because really the first 12 minutes almost have nothing to do with anything that happens later on in the movie. Like, they could have easily taken that 12 minutes out, made it its own movie, and then just started this movie off after that first 12 minutes. They could have easily done that, but I guess it wouldn't have been a feature-length film, because the movie's only 75 minutes long as it is. But there's a lot of weird shit that happens in that. After that, sadly, the movie does start to get a little slow. There is a good scene right after that where there's a nice death scene that, of course, the acting is pretty campy and bad. And it's pretty hilarious what happens. I don't want to spoil it. I really don't. You gotta watch it. You really do. It's a good death scene. And it's a good reveal, even though I kind of guessed it. But it's violent, and it's different, and it's unique, so I'll give it that. But there's a lot of just talking. We get to introduce to them the three main characters. You got a brother and his, a guy and his younger brother, who are both detectives. The main guy, he just came back from war, and he's a detective for some reason. I don't know. I got some. I apologize. We're introduced to the main guy, the cop, and then his brother, who's also a cop, or a detective, whatever. And then we're introduced to a newer rookie, I guess. By the way, we don't see this detective agency or anything. We just see an office, which is weird, but okay. It's cheap. It's a cheap little movie. I can forgive it. Maybe it makes sense too. I don't know. To be honest, when they were talking, it got a little redundant and annoying, and I was just like, come on, get to the next weird thing. Luckily, it doesn't wait too long, maybe 10 minutes until the next weird thing. But anyway, we're introduced to them, and we don't really get to know too much about them. The younger brother and the woman, we get to know nothing about. The main guy, we get to know that his wife and him don't have the best relationship, which is generic as all hell, especially when he's a cop. That's so generic, but okay, fine, whatever. At least they gave us a little bit of something. So you don't really get to know much about any of these characters, and they're not interesting. The acting's pretty terrible. The writing is horrible. This is all stuff you expect. It's all generic shit too. It's like they're trying to investigate this serial killer. This serial killer that showed up out of nowhere and killed a bunch of people, and no one has been able to capture this guy. And what's weird about it is that they keep talking about the serial killer, and then about a good 30 minutes of the movie feels like it just forgets about the serial killer, and then it brings it back again. Another thing that's really strange about them talking about the serial killer is that we get no sense of him being like this big figure in the city. You know what I mean? Like, they talk about the serial killer, and there's never like a news report about like this serial killer strikes again, or anything like that. So you don't get this I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, like this sense of dread whenever they talk about or trying to figure out who this serial killer is. You don't ever see anybody else's reactions to this serial killer besides the detectives, which really right there made me go, I don't care. Especially since you don't introduce any other supporting actors, so you have three people that it could possibly be, unless they just introduce some random person out of nowhere like, I'm the serial killer, which this movie's so bad that they wouldn't do. They would make it so that it's one of the three main guys or main actors. So right there, it's generic as all hell. The serial killer, well, I will admit, the serial killer does a good job of displaying their crimes in a very Seven style, where John Doe in that movie did it in very weird and very disturbing ways. Same thing here, except there's just not enough of it. We see like 2 crime scenes that this guy does, and they're both kind of disturbing, but they're not, they're not, there's not enough of it, is what I'm trying to say. There's some good moments later on in the movie that are really funny too. The ending itself actually kind of nails it when it comes to just being so bad it's hilarious. It's really bad, and they even have some callbacks to the original Hellraiser movie with some of the dialogue, which was so forced in that I thought it was pretty fucking funny. That they really forced it in there. There's characters introduced out of nowhere like halfway through a movie that don't even mean anything until the end of the movie. It's so poorly done, but I can't hate it because the director, writer, and star, again, does a good job of just being entertaining with its dumb shit. Revelations had a very small budget. I wouldn't even be surprised if Judgment had the exact same budget, but he just did more stuff with his. He did way more creative and weird shit with his budget. Now, sadly, again, there's a lot of moments where it's just not that fun and engaging and ridiculous and disturbing and weird and fetishistic. Is that a word? If the director definitely has some fetish, which I get that Hellraiser always was about, like, the pleasures of flesh and, you know, everybody's wearing leather and it's weird and stuff, but this one takes it to a whole nother level. It's just weird. And also, if you're a feminist, I wouldn't recommend watching this movie, because this movie, when it comes to females, they don't make them seem all that great. There's only one character in this movie that I would say is like a decent female character. And I wouldn't say she's decent, like we don't get to know about her, but she's not a shithead, I guess. Besides that, there's a lot of really great moments in this that I don't want to spoil. Again, you should see this. If you're a huge Hellraiser fan, then watch it. You'll be weirded out. You'll be like, what the fuck is going on? But I don't think anybody will really hate this movie with a passion like a lot of people, including me, did with Revelations. It's a bad film. This is a bad movie, okay? It's badly made. It's poorly paced. It's dumb as hell. It's nonsensical completely. But I wasn't even expecting it to be sensical, I guess. I wasn't expecting it to be well paced. I was just expecting it to be absolute trash. It's a straight to DVD movie for a franchise that's only getting another movie so they can keep the freaking rights to the film series. And considering that's all probably true, the director tried. You know, he tried to expand the lore of the Hellraiser franchise. The guy that played Pinhead in this is way better than the guy that played Pinhead in the last movie. The last guy was fucking abysmal. This guy is actually okay. He's not Doug Bradley, but he does an okay job. He looks more like Pinhead. The makeup is good. The practical effects are decent. There's not enough of it, sadly, but there is a good amount of it. And it's more memorable than that Revelation shit. So, again, I have to keep comparing it to Revelations, but I'm sorry. These are the two, I would say, when it comes to, I was going to say these are probably the two worst Hellraiser films, but that's probably not true. But these are the two most recent Hellraiser films, so I guess I could compare it to them. And it's two of the worst, I should say. Hellraiser Revelations is the worst. This one is definitely in the top 3, maybe. I don't know. Again, I haven't seen some of the other ones in a long time. But this is horrible. It really is. But I had a good time. I did. I had a good time. And I'm not sure if the director wanted it to be so bad it's good. I think he was actually trying to make a disturbing film just like the first Hellraiser was, but it completely failed. But it was still an entertaining time, and I could tell he was trying. So compared to Revelations, this is much, much more entertaining, and I wasn't pissed off when I was done. I was just like, okay, that was it. I had some funny moments. The first 12 minutes are great. The ending's pretty good. There's a couple of scenes here and there that are just really funny. That fat dude eating that paper, I don't know what it was, but it made me laugh. But there you go. That's my review for Hellraiser Judgment. I have to give it a score, of course, and I have to give it, it's a bad movie, but I still had a good time. But I still have to give it a bad score because it's a bad movie. I have to give it a 10 out of 40, which is pretty much translates to a 2.5 out of 10. It's a horrible film. It's horrible. There's nothing good about it. Okay, they introduce things out of nowhere. They think the twist of the movie towards the end is really clever. You can tell they think that. It's very amateurish, but there's some decent things in it. There's a couple really hilariously bad scenes that are ridiculous. The makeup effects are good. The guy that played Pinhead is better than the last guy. He's still not great, but he's there and he's good. And they try to expand the lore, so you can tell the director really wanted to try, but he just failed. You know, it's still funny. It's a funny movie. Watch it with friends. There you go. You'll have a good time, I think. So anyway, I had a good time, and I'm by myself. I have no friends. Look at it. There's nobody here. It's just me and this fucking poster. That's it. So anyway, there you go. That's my review. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and until next time, goodbye.